Welcome back. Now, from the rising cost of commodities, ever increasing, by the way, you know, as they say in Nigeria, what goes up in terms of pricing hardly comes down, to the rising cost of cooking gas. Nigerians are battling, to plug all the loopholes in their pockets. But let's have this conversation and find out what other ways that government can rein in on the situation. Of course, hard times call for hard decisions. As we have joining us on the program, Mr. Orji Udemezwe, economic and banking analyst, and he's also the MD CEO, Flame Academy and Consulting Limited. He joins us here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Udemezwe, thank you so much for joining us.
Always my pleasure to join you guys on the studio. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. It's a tough situation, whichever way that you look at it. But the managers of the economy came with huge optimism yesterday at the House of Representatives with measures that they say that they are, putting in place. But how reassuring are these positions expressed by the CBN governor and the Minister of the Economy?
Well, we have to believe that things will only get better because it's actually very, very bad right now. Things are horrible right now. Nigerians are suffering, terribly. Prices are off the roof. This is the kind of inflation we haven't seen in a long time. Within a year now, prices have more than doubled. And of course, you know that this inflation is basically cost pushed. Even though over the years, we have tried to manage inflation, as if it's a demand pull. And we've kept saying it here that the earlier we face the reality, the better for Nigeria. This, increase in prices is happening because we import nearly everything we consume in this country. And once prices around the world go up, it affects us more terribly. And to worsen that, our export level is way, way, way below, how much we import. And then the amount of dollar we need to import is never available. The fight, to grab the little dollar available in the country is a very huge fight. And we're seeing a lot of inefficiency in the allocation of the little dollar available, and because of that, every time you go abroad to buy whatever you were buying before, the thing may still be the same shelf price, whether it's in Dubai or China or America, anywhere, but the amount of naira you used to now buy it has doubled. And that's how prices of things have more than doubled in a year. And yet we still claim that our inflation is somewhere in around 20, 21 to 2%. Things have doubled, almost 100% in the past 1 or 2 years. So it's a very horrible situation. But what I see the central bank doing, which makes me be hopeful that we're actually at the worst position right now and that things can only get better. That's my confidence right now. What I see the central bank doing is to ensure that they remove every avenue for inefficient allocation of these effects. I left the country about 2-3 weeks ago for an international program. I just came back. While I was there, I learned that the dollar I left at about 1,150 or 1,200 naira to $1 has moved as high as 1,500. And then even the official window has now caught up with the parallel market window. It's hurting quite all right, but I think in the end, it is game over for all the, what will I call it now? All the bad games going on behind the scene. Even when, some audit has been done, you find that a lot of the dollar demand at the official window are not real demand. And several businesses and individuals who have connections here and there, I don't want to, call names, who have connections here and there and who have the upper hand to get this dollar can put in any demand. You can imagine somebody collecting $10 billion in a particular trading day when businesses that need this dollar to conduct the official business that will help productivity in the country cannot find the dollar. But somebody who may be trading on it will get it because by just being able to get the dollar at, let's say, 750, and you're able to sell at 1,200 the same day, you become a billionaire overnight. So and that's the punishment we're going through now. This thing has happened over almost a decade. And we've been shouting from this same studio that until we stop that, we cannot find peace in our economy in this country. Thank God that finally we have a central banker who is not just being theoretical, who is now applying practical steps to solve that. It's hurting us right now, but I think the game is over, and the best we can see now is a better improvement. So anybody who has dollar in this country should stop hoarding it, because I don't see the price jumping much up as it has done in the past few weeks. So it's going to get better, I believe.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing for the country.
And indeed, the CBN governor did say yesterday that, you know, forex liquidity sale has increased to about 844 million.
It's going to increase much further.
But my question is, why hasn't it led to a significant balance in the value of the naira against the dollar?
It doesn't always happen that way. Things take time. I've told you now that this bad management of the dollar liquidity in the country has happened over several years. And in doing this, we have kept, you know, hemorrhaging, spending our whole, you know, foreign exchange in defending naira. You know, I know that it's not always good to run a very free, flexible exchange system. It has to be somehow managed, a managed floating system where, you know, you allow it to float, you know, based on the forces of demand and supply, but you also apply some, you know, government intervention to rein in some forces that try to get us out of control. So, but now, unfortunately, while the government is trying to allow some market forces to play, we don't have enough external reserve, enough dollar balance to now intervene when we need to. When we had, you know, huge sums of this reserve, we're just, you know, frittering it, wasting it in the uncontrolled intervention that was not even happening properly. You know, where government would throw in billions of dollars and they were all allocated to those who were around tripping, those who were buying to resell, those who had no, you know, proper documentation for their imports. And it has gone on deliberately within the central bank. I don't want to accuse anybody, but the central bank has not been run well in the past 8 to 9 years.
So I'm curious, because I listened to the central bank governor when he was talking about Deloitte doing the probe or doing the forensic audit.
Yeah.
2.4 billion had issues out of the backlog with that. He said some entities did not even have import documents. He said some entities that did not exist got allocations. He said entities who asked for FX got more than they asked for. He even said entities that did not ask even got allocation. So
and
what is being done?
Who asked, even those who asked, who had valid business, inflated what they needed. They will need $1 million, they will apply for 20 million, and they will get it. And they will use the 1 million to do business and sell 19 million and do a whole lot of racketing.
So if we have found these people, what are we doing about the merchants of arbitrage?
Are you asking me to do this? To tell you what to do?
Because part of the solution.
All right, so the government of Nigeria has to get serious. You know, if this is just one-off, this audit you just read out now is just one-off. It's been going on for several months, several weeks of government intervention. So it's a huge racketing going on. So if government does not want to probe it, maybe we don't want to get distracted, then looking forward, we must plug all those holes. I'm always, you know, a canvasser or a campaigner for looking forward. Nigeria's problems, if we were to probe them, we can't move forward. So much corruption in several institutions.
You say we should
Central
not probe
Bank,
people
NNPC, and the rest of them. I don't want us to go there, but it will be as if we're trying to implicate anybody.
We're talking $2.4 billion here.
That's a tiny little compared to what is going on in several years. Very tiny, my brother. Nigeria has wasted several billions of dollars. You know, we followed this. We're always in this studio talking about the same thing. We've bled so badly in this country. So, but for me, in my place, I'm an Igbo, and they say, Osita Ademma or the Balubo. If you can only get better from today, then it is still early enough. So for Nigeria, I believe going back, people are saying probe Buhari, probe whoever. Who will you probe and not the other? So what, I'm not saying that, you know, whatever they have done is forgivable or easily overlookable, if I will use that word. What I'm saying is that if we can get it right from today, Nigeria is a blessed country. Nigeria has a lot we can harness to make our country become great. I have traveled around Africa, from East Africa to West Africa, Southern Africa, and so on, and I know that Nigeria has what it takes to command respect for Africa. Nigeria has a single stroke of good leadership to make the whole of the world envy, you know, Africa. And Africa is a decision that you see in every part of the world trying to come to. We have great weather, arable land, peaceful people, you know, an economy that we can build. The capital to build Africa is in Africa. But what happens? We steal them off. You can imagine somebody stealing billions of dollars. For what purpose? How long is that human being going to live? And if he's going to even live for 100 years, how much do you need to be able to live happily ever for 100 years? And we're building this world for so-called future generations. And in front of them, in current generation, these monies are wasted. When a man dies, these funds are left in foreign countries and they are wasted. People die in this country, accounts in local banks are not accessed by even the the spouses or the children, because people don't know where these monies are. And people are stealing this money, sending abroad, locally and abroad. We can't place them. We are wasting the fund, the capital we have to develop Africa. And it's so sad for me. So greed and selfishness is the number one problem we have. Well, and if you drill down this issue of forex, it's all about greedy racketing going on around government institutions.
Which is why I imagine Jeffrey was trying to advocate for having a sort of double-edged sword. While we're trying to clear the way moving forward, let's also have that sword to cut those who have, infringed and generally stolen our commonwealth, because the monies that could have gone into, fixing infrastructure, lifting people out of poverty, ended in the pockets of individuals and perhaps organizations. But I want to take this to another conversation. Well, it's related actually, and I'm talking about the cost of living, because it's all related. And for the Nigerian watching, what they're thinking is, how soon can this get better? You have said, it's gotten really bad, so it can only get better from here. But for them, they're looking for
how soon.
How soon? I want to go to the market today and be sure that the little I earn can at least afford some sort of balanced diet and be able to keep my family for the period till I get another one. The Minister of Information, coming out of that meeting, they've been having meetings about food security and the rest, said this, and I'll just take a snippet of what he said. He said that the government is noticing that there's actually food in this country. Some people are taking advantage of the situation, especially because of the depreciation of the value of our currency. So it links back to the value of the naira, which he said has led to the cost of these items also going up. So he says issues were discussed. National Security Advisor was also in that particular meeting and all of that. If we can begin to get some sort of results as soon as possible, what are the areas we must look into? Because I don't think Nigerians can wait for all this short, mid, and long term. What are the things we must begin to do so at least people can go to the market and be able to afford things?
People are idling around. People are hungry, walking around the streets. Every other day you see people who are frustrated, who don't even know how their next meal will come. In a country so well blessed, in a country where the weather is wonderful and arable land is almost everywhere in the country. So it's quite sad. The issue, I read the report about Nigerian food costs being the lowest in West Africa, and then therefore people taking advantage of that to sell across the borders to feed other countries. And I laugh. I said that's a distraction. In as much as that may be happening, but if it happens properly, that could be an inflow of dollar for us. Yeah. We're not afraid of exporting food. Nigeria is so well blessed with tomatoes, onions, everything. But the problem is sadly not always brought to the fore. Do you know how much it costs to move maybe a trailer load or even a just truckload of an item, for example, from let's say Kwara to Lagos? Not talk about Calabar to Lagos. By the time they finish all the corruption going on the roads alone, all right, the supply chain problem. This is not come to the fore until you attend some conferences and events where people who are involved will cry and let you know these are where the problems are. To move food in Nigeria from one location to the other, east to west or to north by road, is so horribly expensive. Do we have a train system to do that? No. If you can fix that problem today, food will move around this country in much even cheaper way. And a lot of wastage going on. You can see piles and tons of plantain, for example, maybe along the line of Akwa Ibom or whatever. To move that to the north where it may be needed or other places is a big problem. So food transportation is a big issue in Nigeria, number one. And then now that we're having, because these two issues are basic to human living, security and food. If in a country like Nigeria you cannot find food and you are not secure, then we are most miserable. Even though when you look at the Hanks misery index, it tells you about employability, unemployment rate versus inflation rate and so on. But beyond that, if you can't find food and you don't even have money to buy when you find it, you are the most miserable person in the world. So we need to deal with security issues too. People in the North Central particularly cannot go to farm. They don't have the confidence to go to farm because of the risk that the killings, herdsmen issues, and people from nowhere that, was it yesterday we heard that people were hanging around the Queen State again as hunters. And lo and behold, they were suspected criminals in one of the western states. I've forgotten right now. So such things, breed fear in farmers, mind. People die while doing farming, on their lands. Because of the land grabbing, land going on in North Central and several other parts of the country. That's a major issue for food insecurity in Nigeria. That's one. And then the issue of being able to move this food when you get them. And then, of course, some of this food, when we produce them, because they cannot move them easily, for the reason I've said earlier, these things waste in our lands. While people are hungry somewhere, because they cannot find their potato, those who have the potato in excess cannot find rice, and the potato is spoiling in their hands. So the wastage going on in our food value chain is, horrendous. How do we handle that? How do we ensure we begin to invest immediately in capital importation that will enable us to do post-harvest technology? I was quite glad when I read the report about the Africa Development Bank trying to start some SAPS program where they will provide some funding to enable agro-industrial production, which is critical. If Nigeria can put some little process to our raw agricultural produce, we will be so blessed with even more than enough dollar.
Especially
don't forget that sometime ago, Anambra State was importing some vegetables under the immediate past governor. When every time Nigeria has problem with oil price, we're all forced to think immediately how to substitute oil money. We think out of the box, but once the oil price is good, with the Israel-Hamas war, U.S. Iran tension, and of course the Russia-Ukraine crisis that triggered the oil price going up, and it doesn't seem to be abating because we don't know how U.S. and Iran will escalate this issue. I hope it dials down as well. So as oil price goes up, we keep running around how to make more money from oil. Nobody thinks about non-oil export. But if Nigeria should sit back on the immediate term, nobody wants to hear about medium to long term now, because somebody will tell you in the long run would have died. What can we do now to make things better? So while drilling our oil and hoping to get something out of it, even now we don't even have hope to make enough dollar from oil. You know how much we're indebted. Even oil has been used to take some loan in this country. And then we don't have the accountability around oil sales. We don't know. I don't want to bring that issue up here. But NNPC is still a big issue in this country, I'm sorry to say. So now, while the oil is good, can we step out? Can this government, we have a vibrant vice president who is a former banker, can he lead a very strong team that must begin to look away from oil and focus on non-oil export? I don't even want to talk about the solid minerals in the north that people explore and we don't know how they are accounted for. Let's leave that. Let's even focus on the natural thing God has given us again by way of food production, agri-produce and so on, whether it's cocoyam or cassava or maize or rice, even the rice. Because the only way to boost your foreign exchange availability is to substitute import. The rice that we import, the tomatoes that we import, if you can substitute them with local one, we save that foreign exchange. And then what we export to multiply it. Instead of coming into our export basket and finding 90% of oil, can't we make oil 60% and filling that basket with a lot of export of maize, corn, rice, tomatoes are waste here and there, plantain. And it mustn't be raw. That's the problem of Africa. Yeah. We produce raw and we export raw. And a little value, you create job for yourself. Otherwise, as long as you keep importing those things, you are creating job for Malaysia, for China, for America, and so on. So, and then here we're talking about high level of unemployment, which goes with a lot of crime and anti-social activities. So, when can we begin to process our You can imagine the analysis they made recently about cocoa. Somebody wrote a very interesting article about cocoa that we export to Netherlands and the rest of them. We make less than 1/20th of what they make, being the world's best chocolate producer. Who grows the cocoa? Africa. There's somewhere in Europe, they're making so much euro in selling the best chocolate because they added value to it.
You have an inexhaustible
billions and billions
list of recommendations.
Money while we make peanuts here selling raw agri-produce.
You have an inexhaustible list of recommendations. And some of the things that you initially said, particularly about cost of transportation of food, from the north down to the south, if that can be checked, it brings to mind. The Nigerian police and all security system must be engaged. Yeah, it brings to mind that corruption. It brings to mind the recommendations of the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms led by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, and they in fact submitted their recommendations sometime last year, and some of them include suspension of VAT on diesel, tax waivers on CNG. They also talk about suspension of multiple taxes that place a burden on the poor. As we begin to look forward to the implementation of these tax reforms, are you optimistic, that if it covers areas such as reduction in food, cost of food transportation, it would push us further towards food security?
I'm very confident and optimistic that if the movement of food, because in this country we have no other way to move things except by road. Even though the train network is coming up.
Yeah, there's the cargo. Yeah. Even though at last time they were operating below capacity, that's the Lagos Apapa to Ibadan, that cargo freight system.
My brother, I'm talking about moving food from Calabar to Kano.
No, you said there's no system, that it's only road we have.
Yeah,
so
okay, I also acknowledge that we have some train connection, but I'm saying it's much, much below the needed capacity to move food around the country. Look at the trucks. The trucks are the only way we have now, and these trucks are even, very, dilapidated. Most of them don't even get to their destination. They have accidents on the way. I don't want to talk about that, but the single most important thing, I believe, that if the presidential economic team can deal with immediately is to engage the Nigerian police and other security forces on the road to see how to allow food items move freely within our own country. We can't be hungry and unable to buy food at a cheap price, and we don't allow this food to move around. That's what we are the ones doing ourselves.
So would you suggest that they automate this process? Because let's not go too far. Just from, let's say, Long Bridge to take to mile 12 or Balogun or anywhere down the line, you will see how many stops. How do we, because we are here for solutions. So
when you move from Lagos to the east, for example, you will count no less than 50 police checkpoints.
That's police.
Are they more concerned about your security? No. I'm sorry I'm saying this in the open, but we have to tell ourselves the truth. The IGP police may not like this, but a lot of police checkpoints on the road from Lagos to the east are not there for security. They are there for the thing they can collect on the road. And all you see thing happening is you drop your 100 naira, 200 and you move on, no matter what you're carrying. And you now see those who are carrying vital items like food because their own is exposed. You pack them and extort the worst you can from them. You can deal with that, lessen the roadblocks, and give an instruction, and possibly provide a phone number that anybody carrying food. I'm not talking about deca parts, cars, spare parts, and so on. I'm talking about food items. If you're carrying food on Nigerian road, nobody should give you any headache more than the farm you've gone to bring out this test.
The reason I ask is because, sorry, Kadi, the recommendations look good on paper, but how do we get government to implement it? How do we
when the president took over, I'm sure he changed.
When you're doing your recommendation, please factor in area boys. How do we deal with those ones? Because they're in front of us. Police.
What I believe is that if you don't hold anybody accountable, things will continue to do what they're going. People are being kidnapped every day. People are dying every day, and nobody's sacked. That's our problem in this country. If you make it compulsory that if this happens and we get a number of reports, we have to run this country as a near private sector engagement. Public sector is not too efficient, but you can make it efficient. We have a president who has a private sector view of things. He may not be very strong physically, but I know he can still drive a team that can handle this. If you make it compulsory that people must achieve some target to retain their positions, people get sacked. Just like in banking, every month people sit down. In fact, not even every month these days. Every week people sit down to look at what did we agree to achieve. Where are we right now? What's the variance? How do you catch up with your plan? And if you tell stories over a few months, you are asked to, leave the bank. In federal institutions, can we begin to set targets? Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Federal Ministry of Works, and so on. We set clear targets, smart targets, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound. That if we hear a report, provide a number. Like if you're running a business and you're not physically there, it's always the case. Most are business owners and not the managers. And you create a number. You have a customer problem, call this number. Those who run that business will be careful. If you put a number that's beyond them. So in this number, if we have so and so complaints, in a month, we sack the commissioner of police in that state.
What you have said.
If you make it clear, you're the president, you can command that.
Yeah.
Anybody sackable. That will make us accountable in this country. People behaving how they like in this country. People are reckless. People can even kill today, believe that nobody can do anything about it. Even a policeman will challenge you, I will kill you, and nothing will happen. That's how low we have gone to this country. And
that would be a good place to anchor it. What you have said about holding people accountable is instructive. We hope
very critical.
Yeah, from that point
in this country, in every institution, nobody's held accountable.
The relevant government agencies will act on it.
That's why we're having this conversation.
I agree also. Thank you, Kadi.
We hope that, from this point, when we have to talk about it again, it will be progress.
I'm always available.
Thank you.
Not always all the time. But
thank you so much, Mr. Oji Udemezwe, Economic and Banking Analyst and MD CEO, Flame Academy and Consulting Limited. Thank you so much.
My pleasure always.
Yes. And up next, we'll be talking about the environment. How critical is the air that you breathe? Stay with us. You'll profit from this one.